political corruption has that levels of variation across Latin American countries that are democracies. Why, if corruption is conceived as a lack of political competition or lack of control, how is possible political corruption in democracy? What are the factors that have an impact in the level of efficacy of democratic institutions to control political corruption? In this order, my two main questions are what factors increase political corruption within democracies, and do political parties play a role in the cycle of corruption in democratic systems? As you can see, the main point of my argument is what is the role that political parties and the level of institutionalization of the political party system play to explain the level of corruption in Latin American democracies. The prior research on the topic talked about three different categories of variables or factors that have an impact. The first one is related to the economic factors, such as economic development, income inequality, economic growth, trade openness, and also a missing variable in the slide is the level of governmental expenditures or in the system. The second category is related with cultural factors, such as colonial legacy, social heterogeneity, religion, social trust, and social capital. And the last trend of the literature talk about institutional factors, such as the electoral system, the political party strength, and the difference in the level of accountability and political competition. My argument in this particular paper is related with the level of competition and the level of accountability in the analysis of the political party system institutionalization. One of the main issues in this area is related with the conceptualization or the operationalization of what is political corruption. As political corruption can be varied across different societies in relation of what is allowed in the political arena, or what it seems like correct or morally accepted by society about the role of politicians. But besides, I mean, as I have to, my approach is like a quantitative approach, then I would try to figure out a concept of political corruption that would be more restrained than it is currently understood in the literature. And I define political corruption as an unlawful transaction of elected public official in the exercise of public functions to obtain or generate an extra personal benefit from the public resources. Also, in order to understand what is the role of the political parties, I take or borrow from the literature the relationship between the voters and the elected public officials in a principal-agent relationship in which the voters are the principals and the elected public officers are the agents. And in the literature that is related with the level of accountability, the role of the voters is actually select among the possibilities, the politicians that are running for the public office, those that have been, or that represent their interests, or those that have been having a good performance in the previous period of the office. As I was talking before, my point in explaining the level of political corruption is going beyond the institution of political parties and understand how the level of institutionalization can change or shape the system, the incentive system of elected public officials to whether or not act corruptly in a certain point or taking the decision of being corrupt. The third relationship then is the relationship between the voters and the political parties, in which the literature has been pointing out that the political parties aggregate the common what will be the benefits of being corrupt or not, and how the political parties have an important role in providing to the voters those two main elements that are information and also a close monitoring of their opposition and also their own members. In this cycle, what is important is the political party's brand name as a capital, and how important is in a certain political party system to have, or how attractive is to build a solid and clean political brand name for the political parties. As larger or as more important is to the political parties to actually have and maintain a clean brand name. This will create a more solid commitment by the elected public official to behave, sort of behave. In my research, again, what I'm arguing is that under institutionalized circumstances, political parties can help to the voters to overcome collective action problems and allow constituencies to exercise retrospective and prospective voting, setting credible commitments and sanctioning politically the abuse of elected public officials' use of power. But it is important here also is to point out that there is two different mechanisms of control, or usually there is two different systems of control facing the behavior of politicians. The first one is the political control, and the second one is the judiciary control. What the literature has been pointing out is that the role of the judiciary control is heavily constrained under circumstances of highly corrupt societies or systems in which the judicial is part of the corruption cycle. Then that is why it's important for me for this type of research to understand really how make the political sanction mechanism to work. The hypothesis that I'm trying to test in this study is related with the statement in which institutionalized political party system decrease the political corruption within democratic countries. The quantitative analysis presents a sample of 18 Latin American countries. The dependent variable is the index of perception of corruption. This is also a problem in the study of corruption, that we don't have a measurement of what is actually the level of corruption in a small country. We base our analysis on the index of perception. My independent variable is the political system level of institutionalization, and this variable is built on the concept developed by Mainwaring, and he pointed out four different aspects. measurement of the dependent variable that I use in these two first columns. I'm using the index of perception of corruption provided by international transparency, and in the last two columns I provide the measurement of perception of corruption provided by World Bank. It is interesting to me also to look that the level of political competitiveness that is measured by this variable is insignificant, contrary with some other studies, and other institutional variables such as the electoral system and also the degree of democracy provided by political form are important and significant in the model, and the freedom press is also significant. But what I found more interesting is that when I interact the components of the political system institutionalization, then the variable is consistent, and its significance is also consistent across the two measurement of political corruption. And those are my preliminary conclusions. I mean, I still have to, I'm working on the electoral volatility component to include it in the index of political party institutionalization.